let's take that. What is the most important issue for you? When this question was asked, I'll show you the pan-Maharashtra data first, and then we'll break it up into regions. When this question was asked, as is often the case, unemployment came up on top, 25%. But remember, unemployment per se doesn't suggest which party is likely to get the vote, because unemployment is oftentimes one of the key issues along with inflation. Here, interestingly, inflation comes in at number 3 at 15%. Farmer issues comes in at 19%. Now, that is significant that farmer issues typically don't fare so high up. Road, power, water comes in at 12%. Corruption, which the Mahavikas Aghadi tries to project as a big issue, actually comes in at only 3%. So that's the sense of the most important issue. Unemployment at number 1, inflation at 2, Vikas, roads, power, water at 12%, farmer issues at 19%. Now let's break this up into regions. And this is where the regional dimension of the Maharashtra elections comes out fully. So unemployment is the biggest issue in Bombay. 33% of the respondents in the Bombay region, think unemployment is the number 1 issue, because also the most urbanized part of the state. For them, unemployment is the number 1 issue. Then when I come to issues like farmer issues, those are highest in the northern part of Maharashtra, 27%. Those are high also in Marathwada, 25%. Those are high in Vidarbha at 24%. So naturally, the more agrarian regions of Maharashtra feeling agrarian distress the most, and thinking of that as being their number 1 issue, because farmer issues are number 1 in North Maharashtra, they're number 1 in Marathwada, they are number 2 in Vidarbha, where unemployment was at 32%. Corruption, interestingly, low in virtually all the regions when it comes to whether it's the number 1 issue. Even if the government is indulging in corruption, it doesn't really in Maharashtra seem to matter to the voters in these regions, not at least as their number 1 issue. Inflation is the second most important issue in the Bombay region. It's important also in Konkan, not so important in the more agrarian regions of Marathwada, North and Vidarbha. Now this typically is along predictable lines in the more urbanized pockets, inflation, unemployment mattering the most in the more agrarian, regional, rural pockets like Marathwada, Northern Maharashtra and Vidarbha, farmer issues mattering the most. So let me just get a sense starting with Sahil. Farmer issues mattering so much in Marathwada, in Vidarbha, in Northern Maharashtra. That's quite along predictable lines, because those are the regions which have felt the brunt of agrarian distress the most, side.
Yes, of course. And that is the reason why what we are seeing today is that the government has to announce schemes like Ladli Behna, which is catering to more of the rural masses. Of course, I mean, the urban, it is even hit in the urban sector as well. But that clearly shows that there is a rural distress. And because of the scheme, the 1,500 rupees going to a poor families, women, that is affecting the farmers more, because now they are not available to do a job in the farms, and that is what we are hearing from Marathwada or Northern Maharashtra, even in some part of the Vidarbha region. Now, why there is an agrarian crisis is basically because, unlike Western Maharashtra, the farmers in Marathwada region are a very low land holding farmers, and that is the reason why they are upset about their financial condition, not getting any help from the subsequent governments, and that is the reason why this issue of reservation is on the rise. Most of the agitations are happening from the regions like Marathwada, and that is where what we are seeing the problem at this point of time. So obviously the rural distress is one of the main reason why the government is going for schemes like Ladli Behna or direct transfer schemes, the free cylinder schemes and all that stuff.
Manisha Prem, how does the number 1 issue in Maharashtra correlate to your experience in field research in different parts of the country? Unemployment, corruption, unemployment, inflation are typically the 1 and 2 issues in most states. Here, farmer distress also seems to be one of the critical issues for voters.
Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly, farmer distress has been a very, very important issue here. Remember, Maharashtra is a state of interesting contrasts. It's also the place where the country's and indeed now the world's most richest stay. Mumbai is a city of dreams, etc. Finds a name in the world's metropolises, but ensconced within Maharashtra are agrarian regions where you've seen the brunt of what has happened, the failures in agriculture, issues of climate change and distress, lack of rainwater, near drought-like situations. And these are kind of compounded by the fact that the poor from amongst the rural areas find no avenues to do any form of urban mobility except do seasonal migration. Now, in sugarcane, for example, those who know Maharashtra know very well that labor goes out in what is known as goita. Goita means the couple goes out and migrates, leaving children behind. Now, what manner of family that must be, that you have to really dump your own young ones to the care of others and sometimes leave them to great vulnerability to be able to go out and earn a basic living for 3 or 4 or 5 months. So really simply, rural economy is stuck badly, no opportunity to be able to generate any cash, basically just food level subsistence, and almost no avenues for social mobility from rural into urban areas for any kind of urban jobs, just labor. So I think that stuckedness of the rural you see in its most distressful forms in large parts of Maharashtra.
Sure.
Across 2 of its regions, you definitely see it. It takes the form of asking for reservations here or there, but the real issue here is whether agriculture itself can be addressed or not, and whether rural life itself can become the village Swaraj that Gandhi once penned down with the help of small Maharajas from Marathwada and other areas. So whether that Swaraj can come around or not, that remains the mirage because of which rural India remains, and Maharashtra in particular, remains a very distressful scenario.
I want to come to the next question, which is to do with who voters want as the next Chief Minister of Maharashtra. And I'll take the pan-Maharashtra numbers first, and then we'll go region-wise, because a lot of variation seen in the responses from different regions. Who do people want as the number 1 Chief Minister? Eknath Shinde comes in right at the top at 28%. He also has recency working in his favor, recall because he's the incumbent, so he's at 28. Devendra Fadnavis, interestingly, is only at 11%. Now, he's a deputy CM at the moment, but one would have expected him to be higher. Only 11% of the respondents want him. Shinde's popularity is more than twice that of Devendra Fadnavis. Uddhav Thackeray comes in at 23%, Ajit Pawar at 3%, Sharad Pawar only at 6%, and Aditya Thackeray at 1%. Rajat Sethi, what's your reading of this? Eknath Shinde at 28%. In one way logical because he's the incumbent. Devendra Fadnavis, if he was far ahead of Eknath Shinde in this data, he could have built a post-result case. If the verdict came in favor of the Mahayuti, he could have said, well, actually, I'm more popular. But this data seems to suggest, from the Mahayuti's perspective, voters like the current batting lineup.
I think, Rahul, if you were to see this data, there is recency bias. So you will see Eknath Shinde as a sitting chief minister having those numbers. But I don't think if Yuti comes to power, they're going to just stick by these numbers in terms of deciding who their chief minister would be. There'll be a lot of calculations, switching of possible loyalties and multiple such equations which might unfold post the elections. I think one more important data point that I see from this is that Uddhav Thackeray is clearly the tallest leader which is emerging from the Aghadi. There has been a lot of confusion wherein Congress leaders were also staking claim to the CM chair in the run-up to the elections. And you see there is no Congress leader virtually in any of these 6-7 names that are presented here. So it seems like even Aghadi, in spite of the fact that they do not have consensus around leadership, Uddhav Thackeray, again, maybe because he served as the chief minister, he seems to be leading the pack over there.
So the only name that shows up from the Congress is that of Bala Sahib Thorat at 1.5%. You know, the Congress wanted that they keep chief ministership for them. But frankly, apart from Uddhav Thackeray, if you go by the data, Sanjay Jha, you have nobody in the Congress fold who can actually be put up. If you were to look at it as an IPL franchise, You know, you've got Eknath Shinde, Fadnavis and Ajit Pawar batting for the Mahayuti versus Uddhav Thackeray at 23% and Balasaheb Thorat only at say 1.5% and Sharad Pawar at 6%. So from an IPL lens, their franchise seems stronger than yours.
Yeah, in fact, Rahul, I have been extremely vocal on this subject. I've written about it. I have said it explicitly that for the MVA, it would make greater sense, even if they don't want to do so in a very explicit fashion, but to insinuate that Uddhav Thackeray is going to be their chief ministerial candidate. I wish they actually made that declaration. It would help them. And I'll tell you the reason why both the Mahayuti and the Mahavikas Aghadi will face a post-election problem. One is that the BJP is likely to be the largest party within the Mahayuti. I think that can be almost predicted. Now, whether they are in opposition or the ruling, that we'll figure out. Even in the Mahavikas Aghadi, I can tell you that unless the Congress doesn't do as well as expected, but if you go by the Lok Sabha trend, the Congress is likely to be the biggest contributor to the MVA. And yet, the chief ministerial candidate is likely to be a non-leader from the leading party in the alliance. So it is going to be a tricky terrain for both the alliances. My personal take, though, is that Sharad Pawar is going to be the unifier for the Mahavikas Aghadi. And while Nana Patole is aggressive and he's been all over the place, very often, I think, kind of upsetting the apple cart itself, the fact remains that he's been good for the Congress. But he has to also recognize that you are working here in an alliance. And in the alliance, I think the messaging is going to be very critical in the coming time.
Okay.
But at the moment, it appears, Rahul, that with the nominations over, the seat distributions behind, I feel the tailwinds are still with the Mahavikas Aghadi. It's a question for them to really capitalize. There is anti-incumbency. People are angry. I can tell you that, don't ignore the whole Maratha reservation issue, which I think is really going to have a significant play and is linked to the agrarian distress. Marathas were once very, very settled. They were entrenched in Maharashtra and were happy with their economic status. Now they are feeling almost disenfranchised. So these will all have implications. I do feel MVA has to be, at the moment, smart. They are ahead. But if they can capitalize, they have a government. If they don't, it's going to be a close affair.
Okay.